children, youth and families from across Canada are joining us on Parliament Hill. They're here with Children First Canada, a national charity headquartered in Calgary, Signal Hill, and they are calling on the government to table comprehensive legislation to ensure kids are safe online.
Yes, you've heard that right. Just like the Liberals, the Conservatives are now calling for internet censorship. My name is Nico Lagan, and welcome to the Political Orphans. 2 weeks ago, the Liberals got their majority. Last week, they tabled a motion that would restructure all the House committees in their favor, bumping the number of Liberals in each committee to 7. Monday, the motion passed. Yesterday, the Liberals voted to shut down the cameras during the Health Committee emergency meeting on PrescribeIT. But who is to blame for this? The Conservatives. And today, I explain why. Yesterday, Conservative MP Dan Mazier posted the following. There we go. Bang, bang. Posted the following. The Liberals just voted to shut off the cameras at the Health Committee's emergency meeting on PrescribeIT. Conservatives moved to call in the Auditor General to investigate how $300 million was wasted on a failed program. The Liberals' answers was to hide the discussions from Canadians and silence the opposition. What are they hiding? Listen to this, and let's discuss it afterwards.
Yeah, with that, I move to have the meeting in camera.
The meeting is in camera already. It is in camera. No? Public. Oh, sorry. It is in public. Is there will of the committee to go?
No. We have to vote.
So, sorry, I have a hand up. Mr. Blanchage on cup, please. No, well, yeah, because within the now the vote is called. Okay, so we can.
Rappel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
The vote is to
point of order, Chair.
There cannot be any point of order when the vote is called.
Je comprends, mais pourquoi avoir appelé le vote sans...
I understand that, but...
Pardon?
Please go ahead.
Oui, possible. Je veux juste que...
I would like our colleague to explain to us why she wants to go in camera, if she can explain.
I appreciate, so I will ask the clerk to take the vote, please.
Ms. Chi.
Yes.
Mr. Elson.
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu.
So I think you get the picture. I will save you the rest of the video, but the point of the matter is that during committee, the Liberals voted to turn off the cameras so that the meeting itself will not be recorded, so that you and I, or any other Canadians that's interested in watching this, would not be able to see it. But are you that surprised? Let me ask you this. Are you surprised by this? Because to me, that was to be expected. The Liberals fabricated a majority. Last week, they put a motion to reorganize every single committee to have 7 Liberals, 4 Conservative, and 1 Bloc member, instead of the 4 Liberals, 4 Conservatives, and 1 Bloc member that was agreed on last year, shifting all the power to them in all aspects of the House of Commons. So are you surprised that they've already started taking advantage of this? And it's insane to me to imagine that we allow this. I don't understand how this is even possible for them to say yes to this. How can they even ask? They work for us, remember? Those people, they are our employees. We're the employers, and yet they can decide to shut off the camera so that we don't know what they're talking about. And as you can imagine, obviously, the Conservatives are outraged. by this. Here is Andrew Scheer today telling us that this is outrageous. Immediately after giving themselves a majority on committee, and despite promising they wouldn't shut down investigations, what was the very first thing they did? Shut down an investigation into a 300 million scandal. Shameful. So, once again, the Conservative Party is playing the game. All bread and circuses for the masses. This is nothing more than theater, because this is the same Andrew Scheer that, with the Conservative Party, voted last year to keep the Liberals in power. Just in case you didn't know, or in case you forgot, Andrew Scheer, the man that is outraged, and the Conservative Party, 5 months ago, on November 7th, 2025, voted to keep the Liberals in power. As you can see, even iPolitics is, or did, report on this. But what actually happened is that on November 7th last year, the Bloc Québécois proposed amendments to the Liberal budget. The NDP and the Green backed those amendments. All that was needed to trigger an election was for the Conservative Party to also back their amendments. But they didn't. Instead, they voted in favor of the Liberal budget, thus preventing a Christmas election. Pierre Poilievre defended his move by saying, we need an affordable budget, not a costly election. Yet, a week later, they made a big spectacle when they voted against the budget. But it was too late. The Liberals and the Bloc had already made a deal, and the budget passed. The Liberals agreed to amend Bill C-9 and remove the good faith religious protection against hate speech from the criminal code. So not only did the Conservatives keep the Liberals in power, but because of them, Bill C-9 is about to become law, and soon religious texts will no longer be protected by the criminal code. Yet, they're outraged. This is the part that absolutely blows my mind, is that they are still playing theater, and the so-called conservative content creators out there are still falling for this. But I want to go back to the original video that I showed in the intro, because the whole point of today is kind of show you the hypocrisy that we've been seeing from the Conservative Party and highlight how they are just the same as the Liberals. And to prove my point, here's a video that I did not see until yesterday. This was sent to me by Wiretap Media. If you don't follow the guy, I love his work. Very good dude. He sent me the following video. Here you go. So as you can see, Wiretap Media is posting about Conservative MP David McKenzie, and listen to what he asked. This is a Conservative MP. Don't forget this. This is the Conservatives right now asking the Liberals. Listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, children, youth, and families from across Canada are joining us on Parliament Hill. They're here with Children First Canada, a national charity headquartered in Calgary Signal Hill, and they are calling on the government to table comprehensive legislation to ensure kids are safe online. Among the youth here today are 12-year-old Zachary and 11-year-old twins Zara and Lena. They were 8 and 7, respectively, when the government pledged to put in place online safety legislation. Where are we today? Mr. Speaker, we're seeing a rapidly changing digital landscape where social media, gaming platforms, and now artificial intelligence are shaping children's lives in ways that can easily be harmful. In 2019, 1 in 4 children aged 12 to 17 reported being cyberbullied. By age 25, 1 in 5 Canadians are diagnosed with a mental illness. We must do more to secure childhood for Canada's children. I urge the Liberals to stop the delay, break the pattern.
Break the delay, break the pattern. This was a Conservative MP. And yesterday, funny enough, I posted everywhere on social media that we hadn't heard about the Conservative Party yet until I saw this video, what they were planning to do about those social media bans. But if you paid attention to what he said, he wants us to make sure that children are secure online. This is the same type of speech that the Liberals have been using. This is the same type of speech that the governments in Australia used to pass their social media bans. Now we have a so-called Conservative MP by the name of David McKenzie using the following statistics: that in 2019, 1 out of 4 youth reported being cyberbullied. That by age 25, 1 out of 5 Canadians are diagnosed with a mental illness. So he's blaming the internet for mental illnesses. Yet, as per 2026 data, 1 out of 4 Canadian youth between the age of 12 and 24 are on some form of psychiatric medication, antidepressant, stimulant, or mood stabilizers. For women, it's closer to 1 in 3. ADHD prescription increased 157% between 2015 and 2025, with a massive acceleration after 2020. We have a country where 25 to 30% of our young people are chemically managed just to get through the day, and the Conservative solution is to censor the internet and put in place social media bans. So it seems that both the Liberals and the Conservatives are using our children, your children, my children, to push social media bans, internet censorship, and digital IDs. So the question becomes, what will it take for the average Canadians out there to realize that there's no difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives anymore? Because at least we could argue that decades ago there was a difference, but not today. So what will it take for the average Canadians to realize that Canada is ruled by a uni-party? Fair question. This is a question I ask you guys. I want to know what you guys think. What will it take? Because it's pretty evident, if you ask me. Since when is it a Conservative value to censor people? Conservative values are supposed to be about free speech, gun rights. Yet here we are in 2026, and the so-called Conservative Party of Canada is backing the Liberals once again, this time not to pass their budget and keep them in power, but to take your freedoms away and implement a digital ID. So again, I ask you, because this is an important question, and this is a question I ask myself every single day. What will it take to wake up the average Canadian? You know what? Let me ask you this. See, that's a great question. This is the question I should have asked you in the first place. What was it that woke you up to the uni-party in Canada? If you believe that there's a uni-party. If you don't believe that there's a uni-party, please tell me why. Please tell me in the comment section, what is the difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives? And I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to call you names. I will not do that ever. This is not the reason why this platform exists. The whole point is to be able to have a conversation, agree, disagree. We need to be able to speak to one another. So if you believe that there's a uni-party, tell me what changed your mind. What made you realize that there was no difference between the liberals and the conservatives? If you still believe that there's a difference between the liberals and the conservatives, explain to me what the difference is. Explain to me why you believe that there's still a difference. And what will it take for us to wake up the average Canadian to the facts that there's really no difference between the liberals and the conservatives anymore? Before we get to your comments, the political orphans exists for two reasons. Explain what's really going on and enable the hard conversations that we are told to avoid, like the ones we're having right now. Because unfortunately, the average Canadian is still asleep. They believe the mainstream media lies, and that the left versus right is actually real. But it's not too late for Canada. All we need is to reach as many Canadians as possible and show them the truth. Show them that it's possible for so-called enemies to have conversations and to look for solutions together. And this is where you come in. This show is 100% listener funded, no corporate, government, or political money, just you. So if you believe in the mission of educating your fellow Canadian, become a monthly donor or consider a one-time donation. Go to thepoliticalorphans.com/show and let's build the real news alternatives that Canadians deserve. On that note, once again, I remind you the question. What made you realize that there was a uni-party in Canada? If you don't think that there's a uni-party in Canada, please explain to me why. Why do you believe that there's a difference between the liberals and the conservatives? And thirdly, what do you think it's going to take for us to wake up the Canadians out there that still believe in the left versus right narrative? Let's see what you guys have to say about this. We'll start with some of the comments that I highlighted earlier. Serena is saying lack of transparency is not something new to this government. It is their MO. Do you think that this is a liberal problem, that the conservatives are different? Because I might be misreading your comment here, but you seem to imply it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem to imply that there is a difference between the liberals and the conservatives, unless I'm misreading your comment. But if that's the case, I want to know. Am I reading your comment right? Do you think that there's a difference? Because I'm going to agree that there's a massive lack of transparency with the liberal government, but the point I'm making is that the conservatives are no better. But I'd like to know what you think. Andrew, the Curtain Man. Yeah. Do you remember, Wilf, when it was a week, if I remember correctly, it was a week or 10 days after November 7th, and they all made a big spectacle of voting against the liberal budget, yet the liberals, my apologies, had already made a deal with the Bloc Québécois, and it was sure to pass. Because back then, the liberals were 3 seats away. If I remember correctly, they had 169 seats. They need 172 for a majority. So they were 3 seats away from a majority. By being backed by the Bloc, they were good to go. But Andrew Scheer and Pierre Poilievre did that whole theater and acted like they stood up. They were trying to stand up to the liberals. Yet a week before that, they were voting in favor of the Liberal budget, keeping them in power. Trevor is saying, my question is, why does it cost anything for an election? Well, obviously, there's they get money. The parties are probably, I would imagine. That's a good question. I'm not going to answer that one on the money side when it comes to them, because I don't know the answer directly, but I would imagine that they do get money to run their campaign. But at the same time, even if that's not the case, which I'm pretty sure that it is the case, you still need printouts. You still need to organize people to set up all the voting stations, all the voting polls. There's a lot of government workers that are already there. So I think I know what you're saying is basically all those government employees are already working, or they're already employed. So it shouldn't cost more since they're employed. But of course, it's going to cost something. I don't remember the cost, but it was enough. But I don't even care about the cost. The Liberals right now are printing money. They just spoke about a new wealth fund that they're creating that's going to cost $25 billion. And they don't even know where that money comes from. They're running massive, massive deficits that will increase the inflation that our children are going to end up paying for. There's no end in sight to their spending. So an election is not what would cost a lot of money considering their spending. Yet, if you remember, Pierre Poilievre was saying, we don't need a costly election. We need an affordable budget, which is complete insanity, considering where we are right now with a Liberal government that has a fabricated majority that is able to pass whatever bills they want. And now, as we saw earlier, they're even shutting cameras in House committees where they're being investigated for what appears to be a slush fund of $300 million. So what is the cost of that election? Zero compared to what it could have saved. Again, that's if you believe that our elections matter. See, that's a good one. Hey, we'll speak in French now. Wolverine is saying, Nico, mon frère, salutations via Terre-Neuve. Ben, bonjour, mon cher. Bonjour, merci d'être là. Thank you very much for being here, brother. Hey, I don't get to speak French on this show very often. It's kind of weird. It's kind of very weird. Wilf is saying, and the messages was pushed into the CPC supporters' head. They will argue till the bitter end that we didn't or couldn't afford an election. In other words, they would give up their freedoms before. And this is absolutely true. I remember, because I've been calling this out literally since November 7th or November 8th. I was looking at every single of those votes to see if that budget would collapse, if that budget would pass, because if it doesn't, it's a vote of non-confidence. If the budget doesn't pass, that triggers an election. So I was paying very close attention to all the votes, and I started talking about this the day of or the day after that November 7th vote. And I was the only one speaking about this. I'm talking as somebody with the type of audience that I have, but I was the only one talking about this. Nobody else was addressing it. I spoke about it for days. Nobody else was talking about it, but they were repeating the mantra that we don't need a costly election. What we need is an affordable budget. So I absolutely agree with you that all the CPC supporter heads were saying the same thing. And it's interesting that you're saying that, though, because one of the things that I've noticed recently is that they seem to be organized, like the CPC shills, as I like to call them, the CPC supporters that walk the party line, the people that are always able to get access to conservative MPs like Pierre Poilievre, for example. We all know who I'm talking about here. I've called them out many times in the past. I don't see a need to do it anymore. But the point remains that if you start paying attention, because I follow them all, right? I follow people on the left. I follow people on the so-called right. I want to know what people are talking about. I want to know what people are saying. And it seems that since they all meet up in Alberta, they all met up in Alberta, their speech are very much the same. I don't know if you noticed that, but the 5-6 main voices in the so-called conservative movement, ever since they met each other in Alberta, they're all pushing the same stories. If you go through their stories now, if you go through what they cover, they keep on resharing each other's posts. They keep on talking about the same stories, very similar to what the left has been doing for years. So it seems like they're organized. Now, is that something that they did themselves? Is that something that's supported by the Conservative Party? I don't know. I don't have any proof either way. It doesn't really matter at this point, if you ask me, because obviously they walk a line if they keep getting access to the leadership of the Conservative Party. But the point of the matter is that this could have somewhat been avoided, maybe, if the Conservatives did not back the Liberal Party. And that's something that Conservatives don't talk about. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want to admit that the Conservatives are as responsible as the Liberals for what's going on in our country right now. Because remember that if you have bills that are going through the process that are still in the House of Commons, if you trigger an election, those bills are scrapped and they need to be retabled later. This is how we avoided Bill C-63 under Justin Trudeau, because he left the leadership of the Liberal Party, thus triggering an election, and Bill C-63 was scrapped. But back in November, Bill C-9 was in the House of Commons, so that bill would have been scrapped. They would have had to do it again. I'm very curious to see. I would love to be able to have some of those conservative supporter heads address this, to come on the show. I've had one of them in the past. He didn't really address my questions. Like, he addressed them, but not really. But I'd be very curious to see how they explain that one and how they still don't blame the Conservatives for this, because they are as responsible as the Liberals are. Jean Snow 1116 is saying, what's crazy to me is that they call themselves Liberals. It's a total misuse of this word. Liberals should be for liberty, not for tyranny. Yeah, you know, if you go to your more traditional liberal, like I always think about JFK. He was a traditional liberal, but he believed in liberty. He believed in freedom of speech, which, you know, in the essence, there's a lot of similarities between the liberals and the conservative in the way that we want to protect our rights. Yet, what we see today is not really liberals, in the same way as what we see today are not conservatives. They are just by name, but they are not by actions. Today, the liberals are woke. And funny enough, the conservatives of Canada would be considered more liberals. They're even more left. Our Conservative Party is more woke than your traditional liberals that you're referring to right there, like a JFK, for example. So I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Let me see what you guys have to say here. Megaman 10 Python is saying governments should have to use digital ID first in a 10-year pilot program. You know, I spoke about this the other day. I don't think they should use digital IDs. I am not a fan of the digital IDs at all. This is the this is a line in this. This is a line in the sand that we need to be very careful about, because once we cross that one, it's going to be very hard to get back to the type of society that we have today. But the thing that the government should be forced to do, any government employees, any member of parliament, we should have access to their cell phones, to all their call logs. We should be able to listen in and direct when they're on the phone. We should have access to what they're doing when they're in the office. We should see every single speech that they give in the House of Commons and committee. We should have access to their schedules. We should have access to everything, all the money that they spend. Just the same way as when I worked in the private sector. Well, I worked in the private sector my whole career, but when I worked in the private sector, our employers, my employers, would have access to everything. It was their laptop, their cell phones, their email addresses. It was all theirs. So they had access to everything that I did when I was working. And agree with this or disagree with this is still a fact, that this is how it is. They can monitor what you do because they pay your salary. I see no difference here. Because they work for us, remember? This seems to be something that we forget, that our governments work for us. The MPs work for us. All government employees work for us. They work for your taxpayers, your Canadian taxpayers. We don't work for them. They work for us. We need to remember that. Wolverine is saying that many times in life we will be opposed. The time on self remain true. You know, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. And this is the part that I think we forgot. That it's okay to disagree. It's okay for you and I not to agree. On the contrary, it's normal for you and I to disagree. I disagree with myself from 6 months ago. I can find pieces of content that I put out there that I'm like, I'm not sure that my views have maybe evolved, or I found some new information. Whatever case may be, many times I disagree with me of the past. So if I don't agree with me 100%, how am I supposed to agree with anybody else 100%? It's never going to happen. That's the beauty of being humans. We're all different. But we should be able to have those conversations. We should be able to speak to one another, especially when we disagree, to see why we disagree, what do we think the problems are, and what are the solutions. Because this is the first thing that's wrong with Canada, is that we're told from a young age to not talk about three things: money, religion, and politics. Yet every single one of us has an opinion on those three topics. They're just like olives. Everybody has an opinion. There's no gray zone when it comes to olives. It's such a weird example, I know, but I dislike olives so much. Absolutely cannot stand olives. My wife loves them. I don't know of one single person out there that is about olives. They're extreme. It's either you love them or you hate them. And politics, money, and religion are extreme subjects. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody out there is just like, money, religion, politics. No. We all have a very pointed opinion, yet we're told not to speak about it, when in fact, those are probably the three top topics that everybody has an opinion about. So we need to go back to that place. So not only is the mission of this show to be able to show people the truth, what's really going on, connect the dots, but my goal is also to enable those conversations. Like I've been blessed that I've been flown all over the US to go debate people. And this is something I was just adding to my bio on one of my social media today. I will debate anybody, anytime. Don't care. Don't care who you are. Don't care what your opinion is. I want to debate people because I believe in the message. I believe in having those conversations. I believe in being proven right. I believe in being proven wrong. But that can't happen if we don't have those conversations. And this is one of the biggest problems we see in Canada. We believe that there's a difference between the left and the right because we don't talk to one another. But as soon as we start enabling those conversations, as soon as we start having those conversations, we start to realize that we're a lot more alike than we are different. We're just being told by the power it be that we need to hate each other because it's that old technique of divide and conquer. And it all starts where? Conversations. That's why I will always encourage every single listener of this show to be the person to have the conversations with their families, with their circle of influence. You have to be able to have the conversations with your family, with your coworkers, with your friends, have those hard conversations and educate them. This is the whole point. Unfortunately for us, we need to start at the very beginning, and it starts with education, and be ready to have those hard conversations, to have those debates. Jean Snow is saying similar speech in French in the European Union. Well, yeah, of course. You're not going to be surprised to hear that Mark Carney is a big fan of the EU and wants Canada to be part of it. That's something that's floating right now. And I saw some percentages. It was kind of crazy. Obviously, you can't trust the polls out there. You can't trust them all, at least. But it was something insane, like something like 60 to 75% of responders were in favor of Canada joining the EU. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. But somehow it wouldn't surprise me that that's correct, considering that the people that answers those polls are probably boomers. Sorry for the boomers out there. But I've never been called for a poll, and even if they called me, I don't pick up my phone to phone numbers I don't know. So who else answers those polls? I doubt that they're young people. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's true that 60 to 75% of boomers or people above 40 actually believe that joining the EU would be a good thing. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Wolverine is saying we should ban social media from children. When we are young, we could leave school and be at peace. Social media denies a reset for those young ones. It opens a gate for the most cowardly of bullying. Okay, this is where you and I are going to heavily disagree. And thank you for your comment, first and foremost. And before I rip into you, hopefully you understand that I do this because I want to educate people. This is not meant as an insult to you, and hopefully you give me an answer to this. But why would you ban social media when parents could simply provide or prevent their children from going online? Why is it the responsibility of the government, of Big Brother, to decide what is good or not good for your children? I don't need the government to tell me how to raise my son. My wife and I will do what we want to do, what we believe is best for him. Will he be on social media? No, he won't. Absolutely not. He will not be on social media. But I don't need the government to ban him from social media because I'm a parent. And I will make sure that he's not on social media because I understand technology. I understand how to prevent him from being on social media. So banning it is just a form of control, because let me tell you this. To implement a social media ban, you need to have everybody prove their age. So if you want to access social media, but you want, let's say, under 16 to be banned from social media, that means that you will have to prove that you are over the age of 16. You will need to connect your ID, your government-approved ID, to all of your social media accounts, to your chatbot accounts like the Gemini, the Grok, the ChatGPT, the Claude of this world. You're going to have to accept that because of Bill C-22, electronic service providers like the Bell, the Rogers, the TELUS, the Amazon, the Google, the chatbots, all social media platforms will be required to keep your metadata to up to 1 year, and that without a warrant. They will need to record what you do in case the government needs it. This is part of Bill C-22. This is just a matter of time before that bill passes because the Liberals have no opposition. They can push whatever legislation they want through. So it's just a matter of time before Bill C-22 becomes reality. Then you have Bill C-9 that was just passed. It's in the Senate right now. So it's just a matter of time before it gets royal assent, because the Senate passes in its history since 1908. It passed 97% of the bills that were sent from the House of Commons. So we're pretty sure that Bill C-9 will pass. And Bill C-9, if you don't remember, this is the bill that criminalizes emotion, both in real life and online. And it gives penalties for hate crimes ranging from 2 years all the way to life imprisonment. So you have a government that is trying to pass social media bans that creates a digital ID that identifies every single comment that you put out there. Bill C-9 decides what's acceptable speech in both the real world and online. Then you have Bill C-8 that gives the power to the Minister of Industry to require electronic service providers, so the Bell, the Rogers, the Telus, the Google, like I just mentioned, to not only cut your services if they believe that you are a threat to the Canadian telecommunication network, but they can prohibit any other ESPs from providing you their services. This is the door that you open with social media bans. Without a digital ID, this is not possible. Everything that I said right now is going to be extremely difficult. But with social media bans, you are giving that power to the government willingly because you accept to give your freedoms away in order to protect the so-called the kids that are at risk. And I'm not saying that cyberbullying doesn't exist, but you don't want to be cyberbullied, don't go online. But that doesn't mean that you need to block it for everybody else that's out there, because I just explained to you what the real consequences of social media bans are. And funny enough, Australia just came out with a report because they've had a social media ban, I believe, since January this year. And they have seen no difference in cyberbullying. Zero. So they do not work. So if they don't work, what are they about? Control. Demetrius James Mukakiosis. Hey man, that's quite the name, brother. The uni-party. Yeah, I agree with you. The only difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives, if you ask me, is the color of their background. One's blue, one's red. That's it. There's no difference. Trevor Benson is saying a parent needs to understand that when they give child access to the world, they give the world access to their child. Very well said. You're absolutely, absolutely right, because I'm not trying to downplay the danger of children being online. On the contrary, I'm fully aware of what the dangers are. I come from that world. Until COVID, until I refused the vaccine, I was a sales engineer in telecommunications. So I know exactly how those network works. I used to install them, configure them, maintain them, and then I sold them. So I'm fully aware of how dangerous the world is. You see predators on video games now, because it's possible when you play against other people to speak to those individuals over the chat or over your headphones like you would see on a PS5 or you would see on an Xbox. But I'm not trying to downplay how dangerous the internet is. What I'm saying is that it can easily be managed. There's an app called Net Nanny. It's been around since I was like 15 years old. Like between at least 15, 16 years old, because I still live with my mom and I left when I was 16. So Net Nanny has been around for almost 30 years now. And it will easily lock down a cell phone to prevent them from doing anything that you don't want that cell phone to be able to do. So it's not that hard. The technology is there and it's not complicated at all. We just need to take the responsibility as parents to do the right thing for our children and not expect somebody else to do it for us. That's what you call accountability. If you're not ready to be accountable for your children, don't have children. Don't be a parent. Because it's not up to the government to tell you what you can and cannot do. It's up to you to know better. If you don't, learn. It's not that hard. Let's see. Yeah, Jean Snow saying they're all globalists now. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because now being a patriot is somehow racist. It's a white supremacist racist ideology just to believe that Canada should go back to what it used to be. So guys, I want to see this question. I want to see your answers because I'm not seeing a lot of those answers. I want to know what woke you up, like the people that are here. What woke you up to the uni-party? What was the single event that made you realize that there was really no difference between the liberals and the conservative? If you think that there's a difference between the liberals and the conservatives, please let me know in the comment section. I want to know what you guys think. I want to understand what you guys think. See, there you go. I addressed one of your first message earlier, Serena. Serena is saying they are a uni-party. The budget was a tell. However, there has been many instances for a long time that has shown that they're all the same. Okay, so I misread your comment from earlier. So you do believe that there's a uni-party. Yeah, we're on the same page on that one. And it's been a long time. Like COVID was a perfect example. I remember Pierre Poilievre being irritated and asking the liberals why the vaccines weren't getting out fast enough. So no matter where you looked during COVID, I got to give him that. The only person that never changed his stance as a party leader was Maxime Bernier. Love the guy, hate the guy. I get it. I've had him on this show a few times. But one thing I will always give that guy is that from the get-go, from the beginning, from 2020 on, he never changed his speech. He's the only party leader that did not flip-flop à la Pierre Poilievre to try to gain the favors of the Freedom Convoy. But yeah, it is definitely a uni-party. Now let's see if I can find some. There you go. Sheridan Forbes is saying Pierre had the chance to bring down Carney's government, but he didn't. Yeah, 100%. I want the conservative heads out there. I like that term. I don't remember who said it earlier, but I'm going to steal that. The conservative heads to explain how Pierre Poilievre kept the liberals in power. How do they explain that? I wouldn't even be surprised that they don't even realize it. Because that's one thing I've come to realize not recently, but I've really been looking into it very, very recently. Like today, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. I got a buddy of mine, a guy that I've known for almost 20 years. He's a conservative. He's a Christian too. And he often sends me some posts that are made by those so-called conservative content, those conservative content creators out there. And he sends me a post, and they're very well known, and he sent me a post, and it's something along the lines that, what was it, 93% of racial issues in the military are done by foreigners. And the stats, people are talking about it now, like people are all going viral about that stat. Yet nobody's talking about the deep dive that I did 2 days ago about how 20% of our new recruits, out of 7,300 new recruits from the military that we had in 2025, 2026, 1,400 are foreigners. They're non-Canadians. They're here on permanent residency. 20% of our new recruits are foreigners. So I kind of ripped into him a bit, and I'm just like, bro, those accounts don't do research. All they do is reshare articles from mainstream media, from media, and get the views and get the money from it, from the views. But those guys don't do research, and I wouldn't be surprised if the average conservative supporter that creates content full time does not even realize all the things that goes on in the Conservative Party that is known. You can simply look at it like what we're talking about now, about November 7th, how they kept the Liberal in power, how Mackenzie, MP Mackenzie, is calling for social media bans. Either it's really two things, right? Either they don't know, they don't realize, because they don't do that much research. Like, look at those people. I'm sorry, but they're looking for what's going to trigger the most division between the left and the right. That's all they're doing. If you look, and that's both sides, both on the left and the right, all they want to do is create an echo chamber where their supporters are, "Whoa," and then they point the fingers at the other side like other Canadians are the enemy, instead of pointing the fingers to their own leaders that's been dividing them on purpose to keep them occupied. Bread and circuses for the masses. All a big spectacle for us to enjoy while they continue to align, like on social media bans, like keeping the Liberals in power, and continue to destroy our country. So agreed, they are all just the same. Oh yeah, that's Sheldon from earlier. Let me go down a tiny bit. I want to see if you guys have Serena again. Nico, I always say opinions are like the nose on our faces. We all have one. Yeah. Some are bigger than others. But I agree. Oh, see, there you go. Bacon Slayer saying an opinion's like an asshole. Everyone has one. Yeah, I agree. I have one and I am one. So that means I have a lot of opinions. Let me see. Bacon Slayer is talking about Yuri Bezmenov, sorry. Ex-KGB agent defector said that it's ideological subversion is how they, communists, infiltrate society. Yeah, it's all about, if you notice, the first thing they always do, well, at the beginning, in order to kind of create their movement, is to infiltrate schools and turn them into indoctrination center. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Just look at Canada. For decades now, our children are being indoctrinated with this LGBTQ trans nonsense to make them believe that simple biology is not real, that emotions matter more than facts, and that somehow money is the root of all evil. By the way, that's not what the Bible says. For the people out there that keep misquoting it, the love of evil is the root. The love of money is the root of all evil. But I digress. You look at our education system, it is definitely indoctrination centers. And that's always how they infiltrate society. There's a great book by right here. This is a book I recommend. I even have 2 copies in case one day I meet someone that I can give it to. But Rules for Radicals, a pragmatic primer for realistic radicals by Saul A. Alinsky. If you have never read this book is, I think it was written in I was going to say 1973, but it was 1971. Saul D. Alinsky was a mentor to Hillary Clinton. Obama was a big fan. There's pictures of him with this book on his bedside table. All to say, if you want to understand how they took over the education system, how they took over our youth, this book explains it very well. It is absolutely evil. It is absolutely insane. Just like read the book by Mark Carney, Values. If you want to understand what he's doing right now, if you want to go deep into where we're going, where we're headed, you just need to read Values by Mark Carney, and you will easily understand everything that's going on right now. He talked about it in his book. Todd J 5635 is saying it's pretty bad that this system is corrupt and you have to take it across borders to get answers here in Canada. You know, that this is a mistake that a lot of us have made, and God knows I've made that mistake myself, but the system is not corrupt. The system is working as intended. It was always meant to keep us under their power. So the system's not corrupt. Yes, the people that are part of the system are corrupt, but the system itself is not. It enables corruption. There is a lot of ways, like perfect example, perfect, simple example. Floor crossings. However you feel about elections, if they're real or not, if they even matter, let me just prove a point with floor crossings. The system that we currently have allows for somebody that was so-called elected by its constituents to change parties whenever they feel like it. And let's be real for a second here. MPs are not voted for based on their past performance. People vote for the party. Most people don't even know who they voted for in the last elections. They know the party they voted for, but did they really remember the name of the person they voted for? No. But they remember who's the head of the party that they voted for through that candidate. And that's the reality. So the system's not corrupt. The system is working exactly as designed, because this the system was not corrupt by nature. Something as simple as floor crossings would never happen, because they are not what people voted for. So there's a lot of those examples. That's just a simple one that came to mind. But Laurie Shea is saying, should be the parents' job to monitor what their kids are doing, playing online. Just another control over your children they have. I blame them for introducing Chromebooks and classes online when they should have been learning reading, writing, communicating, not given a computer. Shake my head. You know, my wife and I have traveled the US for 2.5 years, 3 years, give or take. We did coast to coast to coast. I think I drove over 20,000 kilometers. And one of the things that we kept on meeting is our families that homeschooled their children. I met some in all across the US. And you know, one thing that you always think in your head, because again, remember that I come from a sales engineering background. My biological dad was an engineer, so I grew up on computers. I grew up building, playing computers. I remember playing video games like from like Duke Nukem, the original, talking about their first Doom, talking about Wolfenstein 3D. So we're talking about old school games. Like I'm showing my age here, but the point I'm trying to make is that I grew up on computers, on technologies. So in my head, until very recently, I was always thinking that if your kids are not on technology, they will not be prepared for technology. And I was proven wrong so many times in the past few years. That one of the best example, we have a couple that are friends in Alabama. The father is a high school teacher. The mother stays at home and she's been homeschooling the children. That right there is so funny. It's so ironic that the father knows the system so well that he refuses to put his kids in it, but he's there trying to help the kids that are stuck in that system. He's a great dude. Jake is a great dude. Oops, did I just say his name? Sorry. But he's great dude. But when I first met them, the father and the mother started telling me what they did for fun. Like, we're talking about kids that were 11, probably when we first met them, 11, 12, and 14. The oldest is 14. The youngest was like 11 years old. And you know what they did for fun? They built robots. Just for fun, they built robots. The father and the mother would still allow them to have access to the internet, but they had no social media. YouTube was heavily locked down. And the only computer they had in the house was in a shared environment. So it's kind of in their kitchen / living room. It's in a corner where they can be supervised and the parents can make sure that they are doing good things online, that they're using it for the right reasons. So I was very surprised by this, but then I started noticing that this is true everywhere. It's a matter of us as parents taking the time to monitor our children, to frame our children as to what is acceptable, what isn't, and not give that job away to our government. I'm just noticing we are over time, but yeah, I don't think you guys understand how much I enjoy having those conversations with you guys. I enjoy reading your comments, and just so you know, I'm going to confirm it again. You guys did help me crowdfund the money I needed, or we needed, in order to buy the piece of equipment to make the Orphans hotline a reality. I'm looking at the equipment right there. It's bam, right there in front of me right now. My microphone's going through it. But over the weekend, I will be configuring it so that we can start taking calls. We can start talking to you guys directly, because I want to be able to hear your voice, to be able to have voice-to-voice conversations just like we did, or just like the AM radio talk shows do. So starting next week, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to speak to each other. Until then, make sure to keep on commenting. I absolutely love interacting with you guys. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for you guys. So make sure you like the stream. Make sure you like the show, you like the episode. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe if it's your first time here. But above all, I want to see you again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, last episode of the week until Sunday. I'm joined by Jason Levine. We're going to start doing that every 2 weeks, him and I, on Thursday. He'll join so we can talk federal politics and get some updates on the Alberta movement at the same time. So tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be joined by Jason Levine every 2 weeks. So hopefully you guys show up with some questions. And until then, I will wish you a good evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.